Happy Days. Rachel's Happy Days. How can I, a fly by night journalist without the power to see through prison walls, tell any credible story about migrant detention? I can quote more informed observers, such as Rachel Wilson, whose fact gathering went as follows. Quote, I usually have 3 or 4 consultations for new clients. They come in and give me extensive background on their immigration history, and then I see what I can do for them. I also bring in family members of people who are detained. The reason I'm not taking detainee cases right now is because it's too emotionally draining for me, close quote. What does it look like inside one of these detention centers? It's completely devoid of color. Eloy is that weird institutional blue paint. There's a footnote here. I have written that Eloy appeared white to me. Perhaps Rachel got to see more of it. The interpreter remembers that doors and other parts of the place were in fact blue. Continuing her quote, Florence is tan, white cinder block. Everything's loud because it's a hard surface. I've not been inside any of the cells because I'm not allowed, only into the consultation room. That's a weird table. There's a weird table with a divider. Sometimes ICE won't let me be on the same side with my client. Immigrants are also detained in regular prisons where space is rented out by ICE. The Central Arizona prison has no individual rooms to meet with clients, so they're all in a big room and everybody has to whisper, close quote. How often can families stay together? Quote, the men are separated out and sent to detention in the men's area. Women and children are sent to one of the family detention centers in Texas. It's life-changing to see infants in jail. If the family presents at the border and the woman is pregnant, if she's really, really pregnant, they'll put an ankle monitor on her and let her into the country because they don't want to deal with an inmate giving birth. 40. According to ICE, quote, pregnant females are not fitted with ankle monitors, close quotes. Boy, this is just tough to talk about when every now and then they are allowed to see each other in the visitation center, maybe once every week or 2 for up to an hour, but they're not allowed to touch each other. But if there's no room, they send them across the country, close quote. And then they never see each other? That's right. As for me, with my paucity of knowledge, what I can best do is keep relaying the migrants' stories, one after the other. Part 11, Jose's story. Herewith the second Eloy detainee. Jose was a handsome young Nicaraguan, well-groomed with a nice haircut. Like Eulalia, he looked good in orange. There's an image of him. So far, he had been detained for 5 months and either 6 or 7 days. He said, I was in danger of being captured by the police for political reasons. I was in my 2nd year of studying veterinary medicine, 41. He had 3.5 years to go. This, by the way, is him. On the next page. He had 3.5 years to go. And after the confrontation between students and paramilitaries, they closed the university. My group used the phrase freedom or death. The government called us a right-wing movement. There's a footnote. Asked about the Sandinista regime, he opined, quote, in the past I thought they were normal people, but lately they have become corrupt and cruel, close quote. About the Contras, he said, quote, they're from a war in the past. In a way, we're alike, close quote. Continuing his statement, the government called us a right-wing movement. In my town, I didn't have any confrontation with the police, but on Mother's Day, we went to the Capitol to protest for all the mothers who have lost their children, and at the barricades, I saw policemen with rifles, and I was face-to-face with them. My only way to protect myself was by throwing 4 to 6 rocks and then fleeing. We all ran away, and then we hid in different people's houses, close quote. When did you decide to escape from your country? I went back to my town, hiding in the mountains. At home, 2 messages made me feel panic. One said, now that the government has taken over the student checkpoints, who will defend you? The other said, "You better watch out, nothing to protect you," along with obscene words. I got those messages on August 2nd, 2018. So I got bus tickets to Guatemala along with my cousin, who was also involved. They let us into the country just with our student IDs. When we got to Mexico, some official got on the bus and said, "Where are you going?" I just said, "Somewhere in Mexico," since we did not want to tell our destination. We were 3 or 4 days in Guatemala and 12 days in Mexico. The first day and night on the bus, we couldn't sleep. In Chiapas, we slept on the bus. In Sinaloa, we slept in the bus station. We aimed for Arizona because that was the closest place in the US. We had family in Miami. We didn't really have a plan, just talked to people on the way, but mostly we kept quiet so people wouldn't know we weren't Mexicans. They asked where we were going. We decided not to say Miami, so we took the bus from Sinaloa to San Luis Rio, Colorado. Close quote. And then what happened? Open quote. We came to the border at a place not far from a sentry box. Watching the patrols go by, we found a place without walls, water. Close quote. I guessed that he crossed at the Colorado River, which in that place, thanks to ever so many diversions, has dwindled from the cataract that formed the Grand Canyon into a stream a child can throw a ball across. Jose said, quote, "There was a little booth 150 meters away, and an area with no wall, a river, very narrow. We walked through and turned ourselves in," close quote. Smiling at me, he said, quote, "We thought it would be a quick process to get asylum, but here I am," close quote. Or, as a great mind explained to the Quail Creek Republicans, here's Brandon Darby again, "And what we discovered was that there were people from 73 nations coming across our southern border at that time." A lot of those nations were Middle Eastern nations, greater Middle Eastern nations, Pakistan, Afghanistan, obviously the Horn of Africa, which is a terror hotbed. Footnote. Back when we started, said the Mexican policeman who covered his face, the majority was Hondurans, Russians, a few Cubans, Ukrainians. In his soup kitchen in Nogales, Father Sean assured me, quote, "Here I haven't seen anyone from the Middle East," close quote. Continuing Darby's monologue. "It doesn't mean those people who came here were terrorists, I get that, but it does show that there's a pathway from those terror hotbeds to our southern border. And that's obviously very concerning, right? And then when they come, what happens?" says McCabe. Darby, "They ask for asylum," McCabe. "And when they get on the bus to go wherever they want?" Wow. This is all from that rally that we covered in the previous section. Doesn't this sound just like what happened to that brown-skinned terrorist Jose? In other words, he and his cousin were taken to some icebox I don't know the name of, close quote. 44. The Spanish word is hielera. Why was it made so cold? He smiled again and said, quote, "Everyone talked it over and decided it was to make us want to go home," close quote. So for 3 days, he literally cooled his heels, a day less than Eulalia. People kept getting taken in and out. Quote, "We had to live on the floor with aluminum blankets," close quote. Evidently, the flimsy mylar space blankets that canny winter hikers carry for emergencies. There were, quote, "little bathrooms one after the other with the doors open," close quote. After the icebox, what happened? Quote, "Florence for 2 days, then Eloy on the 4th of September. On the 29th of August, we crossed the border." He carefully counted off days on his fingers. Why didn't he meet the criteria for admittance into Diane's shelter? He had, to my mind, credible fear, a sponsor in Miami, etc. Oh, to be sure, he had come without a child, and let's not forget that he had crossed the border illegally, so ICE had perfectly good reason. "How many in your cell now?" Quote, 50 in my tank, but we have 2 people cells to sleep in. After the icebox from which his cousin was removed 1 day earlier, those two were separated. Jose glimpsed him once in Florence. Here in Eloy, he passed him going to the doctor. Then the cousin was released on a $15,000 bond. The cousin's father remitted it to an aunt who paid it, and so now the cousin lived free in Miami. "How have you been treated?" Quote, "Generally well, but there's some people who are racist and yell a lot. One guard, a young man, would yell. Others also yell. But the guy in charge of the whole unit is really nice. You can complain and he will call others on the carpet. We get 2 hours in the yard. The rest of the day we watch movies on TV and chat with friends. They give a schedule of movies. Some guards are nice and let us watch movies more than once. Close quote. Well, I was wrong. Border security was just wonderful. Open quote. People with money can get better food. Close quote. Like Eulalia, Jose had been brought before a judge whose name he even knew. Quote, on January 8, I was supposed to have a hearing but was sick, so ICE set my bail at $73,500. His bail. This veterinary student seeking asylum from people who want to kill him in his native country. Is it still possible that you will get asylum? He nodded. Quote, my next hearing is on the 13th of May, and I'm trying to get it moved up. Has your cousin visited you? No, he's in Miami. Only my aunt calls me. If you get asylum, what would your plan be? Sighing, staring down at the table, he said, quote, bueno, I would stay with my aunt. I don't know if I'm able to study or get a job. Quote, in your tank, who's been there the longest? Open quote, 4 years, a guy from Mexico. If you got tired of being here, could you give up and get rapid deportation to Nicaragua? Close quote. Open quote, no. There are people who have been asking since November and they're still here. Mexicans get deported right away. Close quote, he added. He smiled sweetly when he talked about his novia back in Nicaragua, so I asked why he had not brought her with him. He said, quote, it wasn't right to put her in that kind of danger, close quote. Was she sad not to be invited? Quote, she begged me not to do it, but I told her I was in danger, close quote. What do you think of the United States now? And he said, in almost the same words as Eulalia, but more defiantly, quote, I just feel safe here, close quote. What if you were to bring your novia to Guatemala, close quote? There's nothing there. That's a quote. Why not ask to be deported to Mexico? Then you could marry her and be in freedom already, close quote. My intention had not been to discourage him, but simply to learn why it was that he was so hell-bent on America in particular. What was wrong with Mexico? Firmly, he replied, quote, I haven't thought about it, close quote. It's just too hot for me to continue, but we'll do the next section, which is another Jose. This might be the other Jose, actually, because there's two Joses, and we'll do the other Jose next time. Thank you.